Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. My name is Tom Houlihan. I'm the Director of Planning here at the Troy Housing Authority, and I want to thank you all for coming to learn more about the exciting plans that we have for Taylor Apartments. I just want to introduce some people before we get started. We have Susan Steele, our board chair.
I can't hear you, Tom.
No, we don't want that. Yeah, I can try that. Can you hear me now? Okay, good. I'm Tom Houlihan, Director of Planning at the Troy Housing Authority. We're very glad that you're here to learn about the exciting plans that we have for Taylor Apartments. I wanted to introduce some people before we get started. We have Susan Steele, who's our board chair. Dylan Sammons, the Vice President of Penrose, East Coast region, Northeast region. Lee Jaffe, who is the project manager for our work. There's our partners working on this project. John Wolfling, who is part of the architectural team. Roger Keating, who's with us from Civil Engineering from Chazen here in Troy. Everybody knows Jill Gorleski, the site manager here, and Beth, the office assistant as well. Today we're going to talk about how far we've come in our plans for the Taylor Apartments, starting at phase 1, demolishing and rebuilding Taylor 1 and 2 so that we can move tenants from Taylor 4, which hasn't been renovated since 1995 and is in need of work or demolition, and we're trying to go the demolition route by creating new housing over at the Taylor 1 and 2 site so that we can provide better quality housing for our residents here at Taylor. Things will be the same once you move to the new apartment. Your rent will still be based on your income. It'll be 30% of your income. You'll be placed in an apartment based on your family size, and we've got the design team and the developers working on creating modern, nice apartments with lots of space and lots of amenities that they're going to go over with you. I'm going to turn it over to Dylan, who's going to talk some more about the project. Thank you.
Are we wired in? I can't walk around.
What's that?
We're wired in. Walk around the walls. Can you guys hear me? All right, good. I learned my lesson last time. Well, I'm pretty excited today. We've got a cool program. Lee and John have the fun stuff to run through. My job this afternoon is to go through some of how we got here. It's hard to imagine that almost a year ago, in a week or two, was the first time that we had met. So we started this engagement together back in November of last year. That was meeting number 1. Today is going to be meeting number 5. And before we're done with at least the planning around the first phase of the project, and let's think that through. The first phase, we got 3 phases here that we're going to be working through over the course of several years. We're going to have another meeting, and that'll be in about another month's time. So just briefly, back in November of 2019, we first met as a general introduction, right? You got to meet Penrose for the first time. You got to hear about John Wolfling's firm, Dattner Architects, for the first time. And generally, Tom and Deb and members of the Housing Authority had introduced you guys to us as their developer partner selected through that competitive process. And we talked a little bit about who we were, how we got started in Philadelphia, how my office is in New York City, and sort of what we're doing throughout the region and how we could serve you as a developer partner. That was generally what we did in November. We alluded to the fact that we were going to start a bigger process, and this was the first handshake in a long one. We followed that up a couple months later in the new year, in January, to go through what that process would look like. Right? We laid out the idea of the general timeline. We spoke about the idea of soliciting feedback for new designs. We introduced the idea of what the new rental properties might look like. And we came up with the general basis of what would be outdoor amenities, indoor programming desires, and we just started gathering information, right? We then had another meeting in February, 2 months later. This was the first meeting where we had our first workshop. And so it was more than just me standing up here kind of talking through things. This is where we had the initial boards that showed different park structures, different organization around the site, apartment sizes. This is where we started to really gather the feedback from you for the first time. We also organized our ideas into sort of a more digestible visual format. Some of us got to hear stories of you from when you've lived here, things that have worked over the time, we heard stories about people's children, people's grandchildren, and the kind of the importance of what needs to stay on in the new design. We gathered all that feedback. We came back in August after the pandemic had struck and we had some delay. We started to feed back to you all the feedback that we had gathered. Sorry, it's hard for me to read that. We held a really long question and answer session where a lot of people asked the design team and us straightforward questions about what was going to be needed in terms of unit sizes. We went through all of them. We addressed the affordability concern that rents would be still based on your income, 30% of income. We said that there would be 1-for-1 replacement of all the Taylor units that are here today, so all households in good standing, meaning without a lease, without violating their existing lease, are going to find themselves a new modern home in the new Taylor project. We also discussed that there is no permanent displacement intended for any of this. We've devised a structure here so that we're going to start on the empty buildings, move people right from occupied buildings in Taylor 4 into the new building. And we presented you with a draft of a memorandum of understanding, which was our intention to capture the responsibility from our side to keep you in the loop, and the responsibility people participating on your side would have to provide input. Right? The idea that this needs to be a partnership, from here until we get the very last unit occupied in the new buildings. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lee Jaffe. There'll be a section at the end where we can go back and do some more Q&A. We'll be sticking around here to answer individual questions too. Lee is going to run through the what we heard piece of it, and then what we did with it. How the answers you gave us fed directly into where the building's laid out, where we're putting playground spaces, how we're devising units, some of the common area and features, the residential amenities inside the building that'll be new, and they'll take it from there.
Thanks, Dylan. After these 4 meetings, what did we learn? Through all the workshops, all the Q&A, all the discussions. For improvements, we learned that priorities are for community-based services. Active transportation options is also a big priority.
Speak up a little bit, Lee.
Sure. As well as healthy food access. For on-site programs that we heard from you, job training was a big priority, as well as daycare or youth after-school programs, as well as senior or health services. For outdoor amenities, the big one was the basketball court, which we're standing in right now. Playgrounds, lighting and security was very important in terms of preferred outdoor use. From the units themselves, we learned that residents prefer open layouts. They want washer and dryers in the units themselves. They want storage, and they want an efficient unit. So what does that look like? So I could hand it off to John Wolfling, the architect from Datner, who's really designing this with input from all of you.
Thank you, Lee. So we've come a long way in a relatively short period of time. Lee has described some of the general information that we got back from you, but we've actually been able to really put some meat on the bones, look at how the apartments are going to lay out, look at mechanical systems, and how we're going to provide for all of the residents a more contemporary housing. So this is really washed out. I'm sorry. We put a lot of work into this, and it's hard to see it. This shows you what phase 1 is going to be like. Phase 1.
Can you try and present from the boards, John, if you can?
That's a good idea. Thank you. Let's see if I can get there. Okay. So phase 1 is here. This is a much better illustration. Thank you. Okay. So one of the things that you're going to notice here is that the bridge is in its current configuration. We are right here, right now. This is our phase 1 building, so it's up over that way. Phase 2 and phase 3 will happen down here when the bridge gets reconfigured. I'll show you that image in a little bit. But the building is going to face the street. It's going to address the street. One of the big important urban planning things that we have incorporated into the project is creating a street wall and having eyes on the street and making a building that's a lot like what you have further downtown in the historic district. So we're going to replicate that idea of a street wall that comes down through the development. And we're creating an open space in front of the building, and then at the end, that will be a recreation space. There'll be some equipment there. There'll be places for people to gather. In the back of the building, we have service and parking. At the ground floor, which I'll have to go back to these floor plans. I'm not sure how well they're going to read, but I'm going to point out some of this. So here's that front area that I mentioned. Here's the River Street right in front of the building. This is the outdoor space that I mentioned. The main entrance to the residential building will be right along here. There's a community center portion that's going to be along here, fronting along Congress Street. And there's some utility and compactor spaces back in here that really just service the building. There are some amenities down here on the ground floor. Tenant recreation space and indoor fitness space. We'll show you some images on that in just a little bit. There's some apartments along here and then tenant storage space here. And next. Okay, so this is again really hard to read. I don't expect anyone to get any information from this except that this is an L-shaped building. The core, the vertical circulation core, is here in the corner. I'm going to show you some unit plans in a little bit so you can start to see how those lay out and how some of the amenities are incorporated into or the features are incorporated into those apartments. It's a series of apartment sizes that are all in compliance with HCR's guidelines. They're very generous, they're open plans as we heard from you. Large windows to admit a lot of natural daylight. Next please. So these are the apartment plans. This is a 1-bedroom. Here is the bedroom. Here's the living room. There's a bathroom back here and a strip kitchen along here. This is the entry point. One of the things that I really wish you could see is this, in-unit washer and dryers. So we are providing those in every one of the units, in-unit washers and dryers. Everything is handicap accessible, so all of the units have sufficient corridors and room to move around within them. This is the typical 2-bedroom. Here's the living room, bedroom, master bedroom, bathroom back here. Here's again the washer and dryer within the unit, and here's an L-shaped kitchen that's off of the living room. And this again, it's hard to see, but this is another one of the unit types. So this is a typical 3-bedroom with bedroom, and living room. Again with the kitchen that's off of the living room, and again the washer and dryer that's within the unit, and then 2 bathrooms for the typical unit. This is one of the UFAS units, and when I say UFAS, there's a requirement for the project to provide a certain percentage of handicap accessible with grab bars and even larger clearances than we have in the typical apartments. So that's an example of what is shown here, but it's hard to see, but you still have a washer and dryer in there. So every one of the units has a washer and dryer in it. So just to summarize some of the features that we have in all the apartments, washers and dryers. We're going to have a central air conditioning system, so no through wall or no in-window air conditioners. The open floor plan, so everything is spacious and feels very open. Efficient layout, so we're putting closets in areas that are not intrusive and just really work in with the rest of the floor plans. Ample storage, as I showed you on the ground floor, there's a dedicated tenant storage space. All of the apartments have their own individual controls for air conditioning and for temperature control. And there's also going to be dishwashers in every one of the kitchens. Next. Okay, I mentioned earlier some of the amenities. And this is, again, a very washed out image, but it's got some very comfortable chairs, couches, tables, a lot of daylight that comes into the space, and we're going to be able to replicate that here. This is an example photograph, even though you can't see it. But the space that we have, the tenant rec room, as daylight. You'll be able to have, maybe that'll help. It's still very difficult to read.
Everyone, so perhaps after when we're done, maybe one at a time. If you want to see some photos, you can look on the computer with me, one at a time for social distancing. So let me know if you'd like to see the photos on the computer screen. Let's try this. Oh, we're also going to put this presentation on THA's website, both the PowerPoint presentation as well as a recording of the presentation.
We're gonna try and get it into the shade too. See if that helps.
So this is a little better. I do encourage everyone to come up here and take a look when you have a chance. So the tenant recreation space is right off of the main corridor. Here's the lobby coming in. There's a management office here. But you can see it's got ample frontage to have windows, and will really be I think a good welcoming space within the building. So this is another image that is hard to read, but it does have, you can see in this right-hand side, there's some windows here, there's lots of equipment for a fitness room, and that fitness room is right down here, right next to the tenant recreation room. You can see again, it's got nice windows, it's going to be sufficiently large so there can be a number of pieces of equipment in there, all on the ground floor. The next, yeah, okay.
So what what we should also point out is the outdoor space that's going to be at the first phase. You can see here there's going to be a lobby and entrance area, and as well as anything past here, it's just private to the residents. There's going to be a patio with game tables, seating, like an inclusive play area, a playground, like decorative planting, as well as decorative fencing that separates the building and the residents from the street. So the idea really is to make this outdoor space for you, just like a social area where you could all get together, socially distanced of course, inclusive for everyone, and that promotes a healthy lifestyle, being outside, being active. All right, so what are the next steps? As Dylan mentioned before, there'll be another engagement meeting in about a month. We're gonna reveal the final phase 1 design. After that, we're gonna apply to New York State HCR for funding to develop this project. And if awarded, we look to begin construction of phase 1 in about Q3 of 2021, so maybe August, September. After we complete construction, the residents from Taylor 4 would move into this new project, and that would be about 2023, January, February, March.
So the unfortunate part about having a bunch of new stuff to show is not being able to show it. So we're going to make sure that this stays up and we'll have it circulating so people can see the images on here. What I really want to drive home is that the priorities that were gathered from the initial community visioning sessions made their way directly in the plans, right? So safety and concern about visibility and connection to the street. The design of Taylor 1, Taylor 2, Taylor 3, Taylor 4 are centralized into the lots. What we did with Taylor 1 is bring it up against the lot line and create a sidewalk experience. And what that does is create visibility to the sidewalk, and so that people aren't lingering in places. There's not like a level of like, I can hide in a crux between two buildings, or I'm depositing my trash because I'm being lazy and it gathers into the corner of a building. It functions a lot more like an urban street, right? There was also concerns about lighting in the visibility of the site. So we created, by creating that sidewalk straight down the block and creating transparent glass facades at the bottom, we're creating more lighting, right? We're creating a vibrant street face. There was a real desire for this phase to have more than just housing as a part for residents. And so we included a ground floor gym and fitness facility, as well as a resident lounge that opens into the private open space in front of the building, that linear park that Lee was just talking about. There was a lot of desire about having washers and dryers of your own day one. And so in addition to hookups for washers and dryers, the units will be outfitted and maintained with washers and dryers day one. And there was concern about the visibility of air conditioning units and having the through wall unit for air conditioning, or a window unit for air conditioning. And so we eliminated that and have a central system for each apartment where everybody has a thermostat that controls heat and air conditioning. There was concern about the usability of floor plans. And so the 1, 2, 3 bedroom floor plans that are in here all have open kitchen to living room relationship. And so you can move right from cooking into dining into living. There was concern about bathrooms being close enough to the bedrooms in terms of people getting to and from folks who might have accessibility issues from their bedroom to their bedroom. So we made sure to minimize that distance as much as we could and control the relationship there, right? There was concern about open space at the end of the project. The trouble with the site right now is that we have 2 real big parking lots that service everything. What we're doing here is moving the parking lots into the projects that they're going to be associated with. And so the parking for the new phase is at the new phase's back door. And so you park your car, you can go right into your building. That starts to allow us to free up these parking lots for the future phases for us to deliver the new park cell on the front. It also makes it a lot easier for someone who has handicap, needs to get to their apartment. There's spaces right down at the back of the building, all for the residential lobby that allow you to get there. There was some concern generally about people who had a lot of stuff and didn't think that they could fit them into their new units. They didn't want to clog up the units' new storage closets with their stuff. And so we're designing a ground floor tenant storage facility. Right, so if you have an overflow of things, you need additional storage requirements, there's one in this building. Right, so we're trying to respond one-to-one with the needs that are happening here. The affordability piece, the payment of 30% of your rent, hasn't changed because that's been the rule since day one. Right, there's no change to affordability. The project is fully affordable for the returning residents. The not having people to move twice or be permanently displaced, also same as every other meeting we've had here. All right. So I think we're trying to come back to you and say, hey, look, this is the draft that we had. In December, we're going to go knock on the door at the state and submit this for a funding award. Before we do that, we'll come back one more time, make sure that we've gotten it right after any questions that come up today, take it back to the think tank. John and Lee will continue working on it. And then when we come back, we'll go back through all the wants and needs again. We'll show how we check them off the list, where they're located in the building. And then we're going to go look for this funding and try and get ourselves a building that we can build. Sound good? Great. So we've got the boards here. We'll space them out a little bit more so that people don't have to congregate too tightly around them. And then we'll flick over to some of the stuff that people really want to look at, like the ground floor plan over here, so it shows the community room and what that might look like. And then make sure that it gets to unit layouts too. And Lee will be managing that space, so if you need to see something else, he can click through for you. I'm gonna, just for everybody's use, I'll stand off to the side, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to take some notes on my own over there. John will stand over by design and talk through general planning and approach, and Tom will be yours as well. All right, we continue to be super happy with the turnout here every time. We appreciate the time you're spending coming out to be with us. We're hopeful that we're getting what you're looking for. We're investing a lot into it, and I know you're investing a lot back. It's been a really great experience so far, so thank you.
Thank you all. We're going to be available for individual questions, but does anybody have any group questions that they want to ask? Jenny, you want to? Print out a floor plan for everybody. We can do that. It'll also be on our website. Yeah. Oh yeah. We
can do that.
I did not.
That's correct, yes. 2023.
Yeah, so the funding rounds are all cyclical, are all in cycle. So the first round that we can apply for this year is going to be in December. The state hasn't announced the exact date yet. We're hoping it's like the 15th. The state usually takes 3 to 4 months to make the award. That'll push us into 2021, and then it'll take us probably from the date of the award 4 to 6 months to get all the bank financing together and start construction. So that'll have us start that first building, demolishing the towers, towards the end of 2021. For a project of this size, about 5 stories, it's 4 the whole way and then 1 5th story at the corner. That's going to take probably, Lee, our estimates are 14 months to 16 months? 16 months. So as soon as that 16-month period ends, Jenny, that's how you get to 23.
And will you also have sufficient amount of apartments in that building one over there for everybody in building 4?
So the number of units currently designed for phase 1 exceeds the number of units that's in Taylor 4. So yes, we have 1-to-1 plus some additional units.
Are those apartments going to be smaller or bigger?
The question was, are the apartments going to be smaller or bigger? I don't know if you guys have the gross square footage comparison?
I would say they're more efficient than the next. Doesn't necessarily answer your question. I don't know what the current square footage is.
So right now, we're still designing the building. We'll have the final square footages at the next meeting. They should be wrapped up in the next 2-3 weeks. No. Yes, heat will be electricity. Electric stoves. So for utilities, you get a utility allowance, right? Which incorporates the expected costs of your monthly utility bill. So that's deducted from your rent.
So the question about utilities. So let's say the rent is $500 a month rent, purely round number. You will receive a utility allowance deducted from that rent for heat, electricity, cooling electricity, and common area electricity. And so that'll net that down. Let's use another round number, $100, from $500 to $400. And that's intended to cover the difference between the reasonable rent and the cost of utilities. Are there going to be less apartments? There are going to be more apartments that are in Taylor 4 right now. So there will not be less apartments. We'll bring the utility allowance schedule to the next meeting. That's something that is actually the same utility allowance from the housing authority. Right, and the utility allowance is designed to each building. So a newly constructed building will have a utility allowance designed for it. Rather than like a 2-story stick frame building, an older building will have its own utility allowance because it's an inefficient building, more utility costs, bigger utility allowance. New building, more efficient building, less utility costs, lower utility allowance. Does that make sense? Gotcha. So the answer to the unit sizing question is not one that we are controlling. So we design all these apartments to the unit sizes that the state sets for the unit type. So one bedroom apartment, John, do you know that off the top of your head? Greg CR? All right, so a one bedroom apartment for the state is 550 square feet. So we're designing 550 square feet apartments for the ones. For a two bedroom, they might be from anything from 550 up to 750. A three bedroom, it might be from 750 up to 950 or 1,000. And so we'll bring that area chart with us when we come back next time to show you where our apartments are falling within the state's required apartment sizes. The state wants to make sure that it's financing apartments that fit the sizes that they can, but not overspending the resource and not underspending the resource. So we're fitting it right within the criteria that we can to have as efficient of a floor plan as we can to get back to you. Sorry guys, one at a time. Yep. Okay. Got it. So the question is still about bedroom sizing and how the total apartment size compares to existing apartment sizes. And so the question was, hey, could you just show us next time you come the layout and size of the current one bedroom and the layout and size of the new one bedrooms next to each other? So the question is, the concern is that the parking spaces will be too densely packed. So the parking spaces will be designed, and that's Roger's job, to make sure they conform with the city's zoning code for parking. So we have no intention of squeezing parking any closer together. Those incidents that occur in our parking lot are our insurance problems, right? And so we want to make sure that the parking lot is efficient and functional as it can be. We don't benefit to squeeze parking at all, because the parking also comes with no charges. Right? It's not like we're trying to squeeze more parking spaces in and create rental revenue. That's not how it works. All right?
Right now, in the one bedroom that I can fit my kitchen table in, there's not gonna be room for a kitchen table, or like a forest area in there or something, because
You have a one bedroom that you put your kitchen table in?
yes, it's small. My kitchen is very good.
Oh, I'm sorry, in the living room. I was thinking you were saying that you have to put your kitchen table into your bedroom. Oh, I'm sorry. Got it. So so we show furnishings in these plans. We can try and show more dimensions in the plans, the width of the kitchen or something.
These layouts, I heard somebody say something about the connection between the living room and the kitchen. You can see that on that one bedroom as an example. We're going from the corridor wall all the way to the exterior wall. And this is like one big open space, not only the kitchen, but also the living room. So it's like a big open space. So we're trying to...
How long is that, John?
That is about 25 feet. So... Yeah, so like from me to Dylan is about 25 feet. So that's your continuous living room into the kitchen to the front door.
Can you guys see these slides better now? Do you want to just click through these real quick just so that you can actually see things?
So that was the one that, okay, yeah. Okay, so this is on the left-hand side is the 3-bedroom. On the right-hand side is the UFAS that I mentioned, but let's not focus on that. Can we go back to the 2 and the 1? So on the left-hand side is that 1-bedroom that I pointed out. And on the, yeah. So actually that bedroom at 11 feet wide, that is a very generous bedroom. So we're bumping like right up against...
Can I get my king-size bed and 2 dresses and 2 nights?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can see in the 2-bedroom, you can get that king-size bed in there, but the secondary bedroom, that's more for a kid. It's a smaller bed. You can still put a full or a queen in there. It takes away a little bit of the room, but you can still put significant furnishings within these units.
This wall that your headboard is going against is 14.5 feet long. Significant. Let's go to ground floor plan.
Yeah.
So here's a pretty good example. This is a sample of another resident. Hey guys, this is a sample of one of the resident lounges that we've designed very recently. So a pretty good sample of the quality that we would be looking to get here. So you're seeing high ceilings, well lit, valuable and contemporary furnishings, and right off of the residential lobby. Right next to it, so you can move right from resident lounge over, is an example of a recently completed Penrose Fitness Lounge. So all brand new equipment, all well maintained, right off the ground floor by the elevator, easy to get to. These are, there's some examples here. This is a standard kind of Penrose unit that's completed. Again, we take a lot of time selecting the size of windows, floor to ceiling heights, treatments on the floor, treatments of the base molding. And then just go back, please. So here you can see the ground floor layout right now. Right now we have some apartments that are at ground floor, garden style apartments that'll face into the new landscape. But there's the tenant storage space shown here. So tenant storage spaces, parking right off the back of the building, easily accessible through the lobby. Ground floor maintenance space, compactor room that comes off into the parking lot. And then frontage of a new community facility, which we didn't really talk about, is at the front of this building along Congress Street, so straight up here, is intended for a local nonprofit community service facility. And so we're identifying who we can partner with that'll rent and occupy that space and that provides community-based services back to the community. So we'll have somebody on site who's doing some cool stuff. Yeah, so just, and quickly, so part of the design of the ground floor also includes bicycle storage internal to the building. So if you're an avid biker or use biking to commute, there'll be storage in the building for it.
So there's one other thing I'd like to point out that is, I think, a really nice feature of this design. On the typical floor plan, one of the things that we always try to do is get some daylight into the corridor, so that when you get into that, when you come off of that elevator, you're not in this dark hallway. So we put at each one of that kind of yellow T-shape area, or L-shape, each one of those corridors ends with a window, so there's always daylight just during the daytime. It gets admitted into that corridor, so it makes for just a much nicer experience within the building.
All right, we're going to separate up for questions and we're going to go through the boards and stuff. Feel free to come and chat.
And Jill arranges for some great cider and donuts and cookies and candy for the kids. Go over and help yourself. Jill will help serve you.
not have